Welcome to Alpha Recap. Thanks for joining us after the close. We've got about 20 minutes of market highlights, tech leadership, and some oddball catalysts across biotech and commodities. As always, if you have questions, you can reach us at stockalpha.ai.
Great to be here. Markets closed with gains concentrated in tech and leveraged plays today. It was a risk-on kind of tape, and the name in the headlines again was Nvidia. Nvidia rose about 2.7% to roughly $182.65 on very heavy volume, around 174 million shares.
That volume really mattered today. And the leverage trade showed up too. The triple leverage Nasdaq fund jumped about 3.9% to roughly $49.40, with something like 155 million shares traded. At the same time, the ultra-short small-cap fund fell about 3% to around $6.78, and it traded huge volume as well, roughly 184 million shares.
Right. And the other thing is, when your index leader like Nvidia moves up on that kind of volume, it pulls in momentum chasers and institutional bids. Leveraged vehicles amplify that. So you get outsized flows into the bullish levered ETF and a mirror image in the bearish levered ETF. Heavy participation across both ends of the spectrum.
So, what really stands out here is the concentration of risk appetite. It wasn't a broad, slow grind higher. It was a focused rally into AI and semiconductors, with traders leaning into leverage.
Exactly. That's why volatility matters. Gains can reverse quickly if the leadership stumbles, and leveraged instruments will magnify the swing. Position sizing and stop management weren't just optional today. Yeah, that tracks.
Let's pivot to the structural stuff that quietly showed up today. Two separate items that suggest the AI economy is getting more institutional.
First up, the IAB Tech Lab released a draft Content Monetization Protocol, or COMP. It's out for public comment through April 9th, 2026. In plain English, it's a proposed standard for how publishers and big language model operators negotiate access to text and media before those models ingest content.
Right. Think of it as a playbook for licensing. If adopted, it could give publishers a predictable, recurring revenue pathway rather than the current patchwork of litigation and ad revenue. For investors, it's a slower-moving, multi-quarter to multi-year story, but one that would reshape economics for both publishers and model operators.
I mean, when you step back and look at this, COMP could create new cost lines for LLM providers, or new revenue lines if platforms pay publishers. The key things to watch are endorsements from big media companies and statements from hyperscalers. Those signal whether this becomes a de facto standard.
And on the hardware side, Poet Technologies announced it will demo two external light source products, Blazar and Starlight, at the OFC conference from March 16th to 19th. These are photonic products aimed at chip-to-chip and co-packaged optics, basically ways to move huge amounts of data between chips with less power and latency.
Blazar and Starlight. Catchy names. But the point is serious. Photonics can be a multiplier for scaling AI data centers. If Poet's demos land well, and they announce design wins or customer interest, that's the kind of supplier-side news that can change infrastructure stocks.
Right. Comp handles the upstream content economics. Poet targets downstream interconnects. Together, they suggest the AI value chain is moving from speculative buzz into commercial and technical building blocks.
So honestly, I was a bit surprised by how neatly those stories lined up today. Standards and hardware demos, two different gears of the same machine.
Turning to smaller caps and event-driven names, there were a few discrete catalysts today. A note suggested portfolio financings should add to Suro Capital's net asset value, which could be a near-term NAV catalyst if confirmed by SEC filings or company statements.
And Capricorn. It extended a rally after reports that the FDA would review a previously rejected cell therapy. That's a classic binary biotech event. Either the agency's view shifts and the stock reprices materially, or nothing changes. So filings and docket updates are everything here.
Also, Garage Experts reported system-wide growth in 2025 and plans to accelerate expansion in 2026. Not a headline that moves markets nationally, but a good reminder that some consumer sectors remain resilient.
Right. Portfolio financings and regulatory reassessments create big asymmetric outcomes. Limited information now, but when that SEC filing or FDA notice drops, you can see outsized moves.
Quick note on commodities and regional markets. The Toronto market opened higher as a gold rally offset an oil drop. That sort of commodity offset drives rotation across resource-heavy regions. Gold helps miners and materials. Oil weakness pressures energy names.
For active managers, that creates intraday sector divergence. Passive holders of region-specific funds should expect higher dispersion.
Let's do a rapid-fire recap of the key market movers in plain terms. Nvidia up about 2.7% on heavy volume. The leveraged Nasdaq fund up about 3.9% on large flows. The ultra-short small-cap fund down about 3% also on heavy volume. Poet demoing products at OFC March 16th to 19th. IAB's comp out for comment through April 9th, 2026. Suro and Capricorn have near-term event risk. Garage Experts growing and expanding.
Those are the headlines. The patterns to call out. 1. Tech and AI were the day's risk leaders. 2. We're seeing institutionalization of the AI stack, licensing standards, and photonic hardware. 3. High volumes mean active, higher liquidity trading, but also more execution risk. 4. Event-driven dispersion in small names where filings will be decisive.
So what should listeners watch as markets reopen? First, Nvidia follow-through and whether volume stays elevated. Second, flows into the leveraged ETF and whether the short cap fund continues to trade heavily. Divergence there is a turning point signal. Third, early industry reaction to comp and any comments from big publishers or platform vendors. Fourth, any pre-conference customer mentions from Poet ahead of OFC. And finally, SEC filings or FDA docket updates for Suro and Capricorn.
One practical note for traders. If you are leaning into that leverage today, review sizing and stops. If you're an investor, watch for formal disclosures or adoption signals. Those convert today's narratives into measurable outcomes.
Takeaways in 2 lines. Today was a concentrated risk-on market led by AI hardware and leverage. And beneath the price moves, we saw structural moves that matter longer term. Standards for content and hardware demos that could shift economics across the stack.
If you want us to dig into any of these stories, the comp draft, Poet demos, Suro's NAV story, or the Capricorn FDA situation, head to stockalpha.ai and drop your question. We'll answer live in the Q&A. For more market analysis and insights, visit stockalpha.ai.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back after the next close with more recap and context. If you have questions about anything we covered today, head to stockalpha.ai, where you can ask us directly and we'll answer live. For more market analysis and insights, visit stockalpha.ai.